In 1989, a peaceful student protest quickly became one of the bloodiest massacres in recent Chinese history. The protests were organised around principles of non-violence and were sparked by the death of Hu Yaobang, an outspoken opponent of the Chinese government who advocated reforms to address corruption and party elitism. The students were influenced by Western intellectuals who visited China, such as Gene Sharp, a well-known proponent of non-violence, who introduced the students to Sharpian and Gandhian theories of civil disobedience. The most famous incident during these protests was that of the Tank Man, which was captured on film and became one of the most iconic images of the 20th century. It captures an ordinary man in a standoff with a line of tanks. According to Martin and Varney, non-violence can be divided into two traditions: principled non-violence and pragmatic non-violence. Principled non-violence, or satyagraha, most prominently used by Gandhi, preaches that refusal to use violence is a moral imperative. Gandhi believed that by refusing to fight back, their opponents would reassess their actions. Martin and Varney also stress that communication is key. Activists' actions must resonate with their opponents or there is no chance of conversion. In practice, however, non-violent action cannot work, such as in Gandhi's Salt Satyagraha of 1930. The protesters' endurance of police beatings spurred them on rather than altering their beliefs. However, media reporting of this incident created more outrage around the world. Pragmatic non-violence is based on the assumption that non-violent action is more effective than violence itself. There are three types of non-violent action: non-violent protest and persuasion, non-cooperation, and non-violent intervention. Louis explains that the 1989 protests were carefully planned using principles of non-violence. Chair of the student movement Chai Ling explained, "We stressed that the principle of peaceful struggle enabled the student pro-democracy movement to be joined by all kinds of people. Many workers and civilians said that the soldiers were fully armed to kill, so we were justified to arm ourselves for self-protection. We were fighting a battle of love and hate, but not violence against violence. If we had lost our senses as those soldiers did and used sticks and other weapons to fight against their machine guns, it would have been the greatest tragedy. We were only waiting for the moment to dedicate our lives." The demonstrations included class boycotts and sit-ins at Tiananmen Square and other locations across Beijing. They drew support from intellectuals, journalists, and factory workers. When the journalists joined with the students, this drew the attention of the foreign media. When the student protesters started hunger strikes, this increased the coverage from foreign media and made it more difficult for the Chinese government to respond with violence. It also showed the students' resolve. So why did these protests end in violence? When attempts to negotiate with the protesters failed, the army was sent in. The troops were told they were being sent in to deal with counter-revolutionary uprisings, and attempts to win sympathy from the troops failed, and the students were convinced the army wouldn't hurt them, making them slow to react when they were fired upon. On June the 5th, as tanks were travelling down the Chang'an Avenue, a man stood in the middle of the road blocking their path. The tanks were forced to stop and tried to go around him, which he prevented. Having brought the column to a halt, he climbed on top of the lead tank and appeared to have a short conversation with its crew. After getting off the tank, he once again forces it to stop.